In Star Citizen, building outposts will be one of the main features for expanding the universe as the players will know it, and will make exploration an essential aspect of the game. Colonizing space on a grand scale will be done by making the technology necessary for settling on new planets and extracting resources available to the masses, with the hope of cementing humanity's place in the universe. This is at least what Consolidated Outland aims to do by launching the Pioneer. The Pioneer is the first of its kind. It's in short a flying factory that will be able to build for sustained habitation on new planets. This because it's an all-in-one platform, it carries materials and resources and then assembles these into various modules that are then assembled into an outpost. The Pioneer can be equipped differently with different materials and equipment depending on what the player needs. For example, are you building a military outpost or one intended for research or mining? The Pioneer will not be able to build everything all the time regardless, which is important to note. It can only build what it has the equipment and resources for, which the players will need to consider before setting out. The Pioneer is also exclusively meant for building outposts. Some of you will undoubtedly be thinking about building your own space station, and I have some mixed news on that. There will be no space station building anytime soon, but this might be implemented in the future, maybe in the form of another ship like the Pioneer, just designed for building space stations. Anyways, let's get back to the Pioneer. The ship is sturdy and industrial, and with its 200 meters in length, it will be of capital ship size. The ship has two arms, one on either side, and these are the staging area for components and parts. These are then assembled in manufacturing in the center of the ship into the various modules the outposts will consist of. Then the big crane in the center of the ship will take care of the last step, which is placement of the assembled outpost. The ship will have turrets and various means of defense, so you won't just be sitting there all defenseless while you're building. It features a landing pod for resupplying parts or materials, etc., and this landing pad can fit ships of or around the size of the Mustang. The bridge will sit at the back of the ship, similar to an oil tanker, which will give the players a good overview of everything going on. The operation of the ship and its various features will be headed from the bridge as a way to keep it more centralized, seeing as the ship is, 200 meters in length. This includes piloting, architecture, construction, as well as any defense work like operating turrets, so it does not require you to physically be in the turret to use it. The Pioneer will feature some very basic habitation quarters, being able to house up to 8 players at once, and the ship can be run with a skeleton crew of 4 to fill all essential roles. The ship will essentially unpack itself during construction, making itself even more spacious and thereby even more effective during manufacturing, but will because of this be less capable of a quick getaway. The Pioneer can configure the interior of an outpost to fit the player's choices. It can build outposts with an interior focused on habitation, or with an armory for storing weapons and gear, which would be very handy for PMC orgs or other mercenary-like groups. It can also build a outpost interior designed for general storage, so it would be better suited for storing resources gathered by the player. The outpost interior can also feature a med station, and according to the developers, it's a goal that the players will be able to spawn at these med stations. It can also build interiors designed for the mining or refining of resources, or designed for hydroponics, for example. There are also various add-ons available for your outpost. These are things you would need to purchase separately for your base, as they are too complex or demanding for the Pioneer to build on site. These add-ons will be purchasable from vendors, similar to other equipment, ships, or parts, and this would be things like oil and gas extractors, solar panels, moisture extractors, geothermal pumps, landing pads, and turrets. We will likely see the options in the outpost interiors as well as the add-ons available grow as the game is moving forward and the outpost system is expanded upon. There will also be no major hangar structures available for your outpost, so you will not be able to despawn your ships into the ether and then summon them as you please. Your ships will be persistent and will occupy a landing pad if you are keeping it at your outpost. It's also important to remember that your outposts will require power to run the various add-ons and the outpost itself. Maintenance will also be required when needed. Now, it's going to be very important to know what you are building before you set out with the Pioneer. This way you will have the most optimal and accurate loadout prepared, making it easier and a lot less trouble setting up the outpost you want. Building an outpost is very much an investment. You're spending money on tons of resources and materials needed to build the base. You are buying add-ons to use on your outpost. Maybe you also have to purchase the Pioneer in the first place or rent it from another player or organization. Maybe you also have to hire some mercs to escort you and the Pioneer to your building location. You can also get attacked on the way there or during construction of the outpost, which can lead to damage on equipment, etc., costing you even more money. Of course, a lot of this can be made easier by going into an organization or starting one of your own, maybe with your friends, making the cost as well as the effort a lot easier to take on. But if you successfully build the outpost, get the add-ons set up and the turrets for protection, etc., then you will reap all the rewards of that land. And I think this is a really cool way of introducing risk and reward for the players in relation to outpost building. The developers have said that there is no specific time estimate currently for how long setting up an outpost would take, but that it would be a significant undertaking time-wise, and that the time required would scale with the size and complexity of the outpost. You will also be able to move the outpost to another location, but this will require disassembly of the outpost, then reassembly at the new location, which might require further resources beyond those you spent on building the outpost in the first place. The developers have also stated that the outposts will be salvageable if destroyed, hopefully, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. The Pioneer will also be able to incorporate materials mined by ships like the Orion or other mining ships into the construction process, assuming the resources mined are the resources required, obviously. This could mean a drastic cut in costs for the resources if you or your org could just mine them yourselves and directly funnel them into the construction of your outpost. This is a great example of the game's systems working together to generate new options for the players. Now, a big part of outpost building is claiming land for yourself, which you will need to do before you can start building with the Pioneer. Buying a plot of land will give you the right to both mine and build as you please on that land, but the plots will be made sure not to block access to cities or other significant points like quest areas or other important locations. The plots themselves are expected to be between 4 and 8 square kilometers, but your actual outposts will be restricted to an area 48 meters wide, 48 meters deep, and 5 meters high. This might be expanded in the future, but this size will be relevant for now. But you can build multiple outposts on the same plot of land. You will, however, not be able to build outposts with multiple stories. You can only make them 1 floor high. Outposts can also be built on asteroids, assuming they are big enough and have a surface fit for an outpost. Claiming land will be the main means of filling the space created by the procedural tech in the game, letting the players loose to explore, claim territory, and then build their own outposts on that territory. The cities around various planets and the outposts will be the main 2 means of populating the universe. We are also getting villages sometime in the future, but they didn't give any info beyond revealing them, so we'll have to wait and see what role villages will fill. They will probably fall somewhere in between cities and outposts, both in size as well as in function. However, let's get back to the plot you need before you can start building in the first place. These plots will be purchasable for in-game currency, the price of which will depend on a variety of factors. These include the resources present and the quantity of said resources, as well as the current market value. The level of certainty about the information gathered on this plot is also a factor, as well as when this info was last verified, because these plots will have been discovered and evaluated by players, which will give exploration an essential role. I'll get to that in a little bit. You won't need information on a plot to buy it and settle on it, but the information will be a great way of knowing what you are getting, especially if the information is new, so that you know that people haven't been there and emptied out all of the resources. The location will also be a big factor, not just how the actual location is, but also how good it is relative to surrounding refineries or plants, as well as how close to marketplaces the plot is for unloading and selling the resources potentially received from this plot. When you first claim a plot, you will be placing down a beacon, which is a sort of temporary placeholder. You then need to report this in with the UEE, if the plot is under the UEE, and at that point the plot will lock in as your property. You can use this land the way you want and in the time you want. If you, for example, want to hold off on extracting the resources until the price goes up, you can do that. You can also just sell the land on the moment the resources have been verified. Tons of opportunities. A lot of you might dislike hearing that you have to pay for these plots. The thing is, you don't necessarily have to pay. The reason you have to pay is because you are in regulated space, most likely UEE space. But there are unregulated parts of space in the game as well. UEE space requires claims, which means protection, but also a cut taken by the UEE if a plot is transferred between players, for example. Non-regulated space, however, does not require the purchase of a claim, but you will be doing this at your own peril as you are more at risk of lawlessness. It's important to keep in mind that the outpost is persistent and part of the persistent universe, meaning that even if a player logs out, the outpost will still be there, so it can get attacked or trespassed on if you are not there to protect it. Theft and trespassing will be more viable in unregulated non-UEE space, but will be harder in UEE space as you are under its protection, and the UEE will classify this a crime, so you will have some extra help there, not necessarily always enough though. Now there are various means of protecting your land. You can hire security to guard your outpost, or you can install defense systems. You can also place down sensors for detecting other players on your land. Countermeasures like this will probably also be really useful if you are managing multiple plots, for example. You can also rely solely on the UEE to defend your base if you fall under their protection, but how effective they will be varies depending on how central your plot is to UEE planets or outposts, as well as how safe your part of space is in general. Basically, the less safe the area you set up your outpost in, the more responsible you are for your own security. Like I said earlier in the video, exploration will become very central and important in this part of the game. Players will be able to fly around exploring and gathering information about plots. They can sell this information onwards to databases and brokers, freely submit it to public domains, or pass it on to orgs or other players. This will make exploration viable as a focus in the game and opens up a ton of new ways to play. Here, the ships that will have exploration as a focus area really come in handy. These ships will have various tools and equipment they can make use of in the exploration and scouting of potential plots for players to settle. The ships might have various pros and cons. Some might be bigger and can carry more equipment for more accurate scans and detailed samples, adding to the quality of the information. And other ships might be smaller, faster ships that might only be able to do the essential tasks related to information gathering, but won't need an entire crew to do it. This will obviously vary from ship to ship, and this will be ships like the Freelancer Dur, Anvil Terrapin, Anvil Kurak, Constellation Ikea, and many more. Many of the various ground vehicles like the Ursa Rover or the Cyclone will also be majorly useful in this part of the game. It will now be useful for organizations, or players in general for that matter, to scout for good plots that they can use for creating profit. This is also a potential main focus for the players that enjoy the exploration type of gameplay. There is also another interesting gameplay layer added with this system. Scans can create an impression of a plot, but the best way of acquiring knowledge or information about a location is a flyover, or even better, actually visiting the locale. This obviously has its hazards, as now you're going to be burning fuel, time, effort to get there. Maybe you get into a fight on the way as well and take some damage. But with you making that extra effort, you might have been able to gather a lot more detailed information about the plot. This will increase the value of the plot, which means the information is also worth more if you decide to sell it. You can do things like taking core samples, seismographic scans by landing, getting out and taking the time, increasing the value of the information even further. This is again a great example of the type of risk and reward the devs hope to bring into these higher gameplay systems. And to me, exploration will probably be the most versatile aspect of the game. You can apply to a lot of the other game mechanics. For example, in this video I have talked about how exploration will likely function related to resource gathering and base building, but you could also apply exploration to the research and science part of the game, by discovering and mapping the universe, discovering new life and fauna, new minerals and ore, etc. You can also use exploration in combat, scouting for enemy presence or bases, mapping out enemy defenses and looking for weak points. There is so much that you can apply exploration to, so I think it will be one of the most essential parts of the game. The developers are working towards all of these high-level systems, base building, exploration, resource gathering, etc., feeding into each other, and thereby generating gameplay for the players, which will hopefully provide a lot of variety and possibilities on how to play the game. The developers aim for a big sandbox, meaning that players can focus on the gameplay they find interesting. And in regards to just what we've been talking about in this video, there are a ton of possibilities. To name a few, you can work as a trader or a hauler of resources and materials. This can be for outpost building as well as the resources generated from those outposts. You can work as security for the builders or for the bases themselves. You can be an explorer of the unknown parts of space and information gathering on these locations to deem them safe or profitable. You can be mining or farming the resources on a plot that you own. You can be raiding other players' outposts and thieving your way to riches, etc, etc, etc. And the possibilities will only continue to expand as these systems and the game keeps growing. So what do you guys think about this? Are you excited for building outposts or maybe raiding other people's outposts? Is there something in the video that really struck you as something you could imagine doing in the game? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more. Take care, guys.